Welcome to the Kindness Project, the podcast designed to share stories of kindness and share how kindness can make positive change in our world, one small act at a time.
This week on the Kindness Project, we talk about legalising hugs, first world problems, and we have part 2 of our interview with James Herbertson.
Welcome to another edition of the Kindness Project. I'm joined by a girl who I've just found out doesn't get enough sleep. It's Charlotte James.
And I'm joined by a man who didn't inform me we were doing multiple recordings today, so I've just been taken by surprise that he started another one.
Well, the challenge we've got is when we first started doing the Kindness Project, we used to record them in bulk. Then through lockdown, we were doing a Kindness Project episode every single day because we were doing the lives. Do you remember that?
And then it went down to like 3 times a week, but we were still like...
But we had loads and loads and loads recorded because we were just doing the lives.
It got to the point where we were midsummer and we had enough episodes to last us till the new year.
Yeah.
So, like... I'm really not used to...
But you know what? I missed doing the recordings. I mean, it was a weird time because things were going back to normal and like there was a bit of transition period and it was all a bit sort of wavy, wasn't it? Because, there was life was going back to normal and then life didn't go back to normal because we had to go back into lockdown. I'm hoping now, Charlotte, that we will now be going back to a bit of normality.
Well, this will be released...
While we're away, actually. It'll be released when we're in Scotland.
Oh, no. No,
Yeah.
it won't. Not next week.
Yeah, next week. It's
No.
next week's episode. Sorry, there's some weird time vortex going on with the listeners.
Can't be away next week. I still have college.
Oh, no.
So it's the week after.
Yeah, we're away. We're away
It's
the week after. Yeah.
So if this is being released on Thursday next week,
This is like an episode of Doctor Who.
I'm wrapping my head around it. If this is being released Thursday next week, so to you guys, last Monday you were able to take face masks off in public settings. That's where I was going with this tangent.
What can you do this week? Exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
Take a longer nap if you want.
Yeah, go. I mean, like, invite some mates out. Go for a meal. Do something. I mean, I don't know whether I should be admitting this because I might have the police round. I did give 2 people a hug on Saturday, even though hugs weren't legally allowed until Monday.
It's really weird to think that hugs weren't legally allowed at one point. It's like...
It is the strangest thing in the world. And I've been, just before the police start banging down my door, I have been a stickler for the rules during COVID, and at times just making sure that I sort of didn't do anything that was breaking the rules. But it was one of my best mates that I've known for... 35 years, donkey's years, and I hadn't seen for months and months and months and months, and went round, had a cup of tea, and he sort of went to give me a cuddle, and I thought, I'm not gonna say no to a hug. I've had one jab. I think he's had his jab. We're pretty well sort of, and he gave me a big cuddle, and then I went round my dad's, your granddad's, and not your granddad's, listeners. Your granddad's are completely different people, but I'm talking to Charlotte. And he gave me a cuddle when I left. And
he's a very physically affectionate man, though.
He is, for a big, burly bloke. My dad is quite physically affectionate.
He in all the time I've known him to have dogs, they're always the smallest dogs you can imagine.
Oh, you know what?
And they sit on his shoulder and it's like...
Oh, but his new dog is like literally a whirlwind. He jumped on my head at one point.
She's a baby. She's just a baby.
Now, can we talk about your thing about dogs at the minute? Because there is a new show on Channel 4 called what?
The Doghouse, I think.
The Doghouse, which effectively is just loads of dogs. And
no, we don't want a dog anymore. We want a turtle.
And we'll talk about that in a minute. Loads of dogs. And there was a period, listeners, where Charlotte and my wife Cassie spent just watching the Doghouse on loop because it's on 4 on demand. Just going, should we get one of them? Should we get one of them? Should we get one of them? When you can look after the one dog we've got. I'll let you have another dog, all right? When the back garden doesn't look like a waste yard, we
Dog's
can get...
gotta go, Dad. Dog's gotta
Dog's
go.
got to go. You've got to tidy it up, but you don't do it quick enough. Oh, God, this is like first world problems. Dog poo pandemic. Anyway, listeners, I hope you're doing amazingly well. I hope that you're enjoying this sort of new freedoms we've got.
Go out, hug your family, hug your friends.
But do it in moderation, chaps, because we want to make sure that COVID...
Oh, there's still COVID, but like, enjoy the time with your family now before they lock us down again.
They're not... God, dystopian world future. They're not going to lock us down again. I think it's going to be okay. We will wait and see. On that note, should we do and swiftly changing the subject, should we do another question of the podcast as we normally do? This week's question is an interesting one. And we had a good we've already had a good reaction to this one. And this is where I get serious. Do you know what mastermind is?
Have I been living under a rock?
Listeners, do you know what mastermind is? Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Sorry, can you come off mute? Can you come off mute, please?
Your Wi-Fi's a bit unstable.
You keep on glitching, mate. Hello? We'll assume not. Charlotte's going to explain what mastermind is.
They sit the clever people in the chair.
Like sit the clever people in the chair.
And they ask them questions on a subject that they like. And if they get points on the subject, they get
Are you trying to explain it in the most simplistic way? I sit the people in the chair.
No, this is my understanding of mastermind. They sit the clever people in the chair, ask them topics about their specialist subject, count up all their points, and the more points they've got, the more likely they are to win. Which, you know...
That's how most quiz shows work.
That's how most quiz
So
Other than pointless.
So, can we just quickly, while you let the dog out, talk about our obsession with our obsession? We'll come back to the question of the podcast, but let's just have a quick conversation about your obsession with the countdown theme tune. I mean, it is an unofficial question of the podcast. Before we get on to the official question of the podcast, is how long do you reckon you could tolerate the countdown theme tune? I reckon 4 hours. What do you reckon?
2 minutes.
And would it be...
It loops around 4 times and I'm done.
Yeah. Stop it! And
Just
would
chucks the
it be
screen.
worse if it was just the...
Oh, we had this discussion.
I don't know what's the matter with my throat. I can't do the countdown theme tune. Or every 30 seconds it went... Yeah, exactly. What do you reckon would be worse?
I think it'd be worse. We had this discussion when we were at the beach. And I said I think it's...
Let's go to the beach.
Let's go. Oh, you didn't go on. Okay.
I'm worried about copyright.
We had this discussion at the beach. I mean, if they're not going to copyright us over the after the countdown theme song, I don't know what...
Well, my assumption is that as long as you can only do 10 seconds of any song, but actually we have got an artist that I jumped on Twitter the other day and was talking about who did offer us to use one of their songs on a podcast, so we might give a shout out to them in the future. But my understanding is that as long as you use 10 seconds
and nothing more, you're okay to do it. But I don't know if that counts if you just keep on repeating the countdown theme song. I don't know. Anyway, so what would be worse? Just the do bit over and over, or the full 30 seconds over and over? The full 30 seconds over and over.
I reckon you're right.
Yeah, because you think it's coming to an end and then it just starts back up again.
Yeah.
It's like...
Yeah. And what they should do is just make the time between the end of the end of the last one and the start of the first one random. So it could be like a millisecond, or it could be 3 seconds, but it always restarts.
No. Make the gap between them longer each time. It's just like, oh, it's finally done, and then just like 2 seconds later, it starts again.
Good move. That's not the official question of the podcast, because that would be frankly ridiculous. The question is, you are in the Mastermind Black Chair. What is going to be your specialist subject? What subject of trivia do you think that you would be amazing enough to boss it in the Mastermind Black Chair? What would be yours?
Please don't put me in the Mastermind Black Chair. There is no subject I could boss.
I bet there is. How about psychology? How about something you're actually actively studying at the minute?
What? Like, I do sociology, I guess. I do psychology.
So you're going to go in the black chair?
I do some lessons.
Right, okay. Let's do a bit of a role play here, because most people, when they get in the black chair, right, when they're asked what the specialist subject is, they're very confident in their response because they know they're going to box it, right? So let's do a bit of a reenactment of Mastermind. Okay, name? No. That's the easy question. That's the easy question. You're not meant to stumble over that one. Let me start again. Name?
Cheese Wheel.
Cheese Wheel? Your name's Cheese Wheel? Tell me your specialist subject is Camembert and Brie of the 1890s or something like that.
No, cheese rolling.
Your name is Cheese Rolling. Your name is Cheese Rolling. Let's start again. I appreciate this is a pressurised environment. Right, let's start again.
Oh, nothing more pressurised than your own dining room, eh?
Name?
Chicken nuggets.
Name chicken nuggets. Specialist subject.
McDonald's Happy Meals.
McDonald's Happy Meals. Name chicken nuggets. That would be, you know what's amazing, right? If you change your name by default to chicken nuggets because your favourite specialist subject was going to be McDonald's. Sorry, last time you were on the show, Chicken Nuggets, your name was Cheese Rolling. When did you last change your name?
2 hours ago. Very easy process if you've got the money for it.
Yeah, I think your specialist subject should be the process of depot. Anyway, on that note...
I can't be topic appropriate, don't I?
On that note, I mean, one question of the podcast that I do want to do in the future is if you could change your name to anything, what would it be? And clearly we've already got your answer to that. It'd be chicken nuggets or cheese rolling. Rolling. Cheese are rolling. Anyway, on that note, shall we get on with the show?
You could have done so much better. I was expecting you to go rolly mo.
That's what I'm going to change my name by default to. Rolly mo. The rolliest mo you'll ever know. And his name is...
Rolly mo.
On that note, should we get on with the show?
Yeah, go on.
So... and if you're listening, James, I'm sorry about that first bit, because your interview we really enjoyed, and we really enjoyed sharing your stories of social entrepreneurship, the amazing work you do with charities, and meeting a generally all-round awesome individual. This is part 2, you good listeners, of the James Herbertson interview. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, make sure you check out the last episode to get a real insight to James, because we're going to carry on the conversation we had with him today.
Let's go.
Let's do it. I suppose the interesting thing for me is when you've had that parental push to gain knowledge and education, you're moving into environments where potentially that push might not be there in environments where, in countries where the push might be to start earning money for the family at quite a young age. How do you encourage the importance of education in communities where it may not be such a focus? Because we're lucky here, right? You know, do you think there's a desire for education in those communities?
If I look what's happening in Zimbabwe, I think it definitely depends whether you're male or female.
Okay.
That's a difference. So one of the big drop-offs in education in rural Zimbabwe is when girls get to, age of menstruation and so on, then there's massive dropout. First it starts with missing probably at least a week every month, and then after the parents stop paying their fees.
Right.
So then there's a real sort of taboo around that sort of education piece generally in some of the rural areas. So that's a big determinant, which is obviously not great.
No.
I think only so much can come from yourself. I think if you're brought up, like you say, where it's being drilled into you, the purpose of education, how much can you influence? I think it's a bit of a chicken and egg. I mean, when I look there, if you create, we've done a lot of infrastructure projects, so you've got a situation where people were taught either underneath a tree or in mud huts. If you suddenly can give them an opportunity to, right now we've actually got classroom blocks. Then you address, okay, they need to have a source of water so they're not walking like 7, 8 or more kilometres a day just to go and get drinking water. If you can take that away by putting, say, a borehole in, and then you can provide proper sanitation with proper toilets. It's like a bit like a sort of legs of a chair. They're all important.
Incremental change, right?
Yeah. And then actually sometimes it's the things you don't see, but like actually putting decent housing in for the teachers. Okay. So now the teachers aspire to work there. You know, we've had schools where they were like 50, 60 students, and within literally a year have grown to like 250 students, are beacons of the community.
Yeah.
Rather than teachers running away because they get a better service or back to the cities, they now aspire to work there.
Yeah.
You
create this cornerstone of the community.
Yeah. So I think the environment is very important, and it's not just purely your environment at home.
Yeah, and I interestingly, I think that focus on the aspiration, building something that people aspire to be part of is an interesting way of positioning it. Yeah. So we've talked about a little bit about the projects, but tell me about one of the projects specifically.
Okay, so our first project was in, it's near Ipanema in Rio, in Brazil. It's an organisation called Mais Caminos over there. Those only Portuguese listeners, excuse my pronunciation. Mais Caminos kind of means more pathways, giving a kind of literal translation. And the idea there is that they run an after-school club, and it has two purposes, I think. One, we're funding the English language classes, so people get the chance to learn English, and hopefully at the end they're aged from 12 to 16. So the idea being when they get to the end, then hopefully they have a higher level of English and then more opportunities, which counts to a really interesting study that you can virtually earn double just by virtue of speaking English in some careers like trade, tourism, etc. Sure. So it's very important. So that's one purpose, but also by funding the teachers and be able to have more hours of this after-school club, then they're being kept off the streets, avoiding getting into a life of crime, etc., etc.
So social influence as well.
Exactly, it's a big social influence. And so I'd heard about the organisation by sort of mutual contact and so on, got in touch with them, and just to see the smiling pictures of people that are now studying English, their pride of when they get their certificate at the end of the term and so on. And we really want to build on this as a model. And they're a great organisation. I mean, they're actually quite similar to us, just based at a different location. They have a Portuguese school, so they have a lot of normally Americans coming down to Brazil and other South Americans, but some from Europe as well, who come. And then they saw, wow, people wanted to volunteer, and so they started with having volunteer people to help in the same idea, like the after school club. And so we said, well, why don't we help fund a teacher?
Yeah.
And so it's really starting to blossom. So we now got a couple of classes going there.
Amazing.
And yeah, it's going well. And that's kind of been our model. So actually the one we've got running in Medellin in Colombia, it's actually called Fundación Caminos. They don't all have to have Caminos in the name. They just have to have them. They start a slightly different way, but similar sort of idea. Where this guy Eddie he came from he's Dutch and came from Holland, and he went over and he was doing like a kind of football coaching for the people in the comuna, they call it there. It's like the equivalent of the favela. And he said you can be part of the football team, but the one condition, apart from playing football presumably well, was you have to go to your classes, in the secondary school.
Yeah.
And it was amazing, just like there was the aspiration, as you say, to be part of the football club.
Yeah.
And to wear the shirt. I think they had all the orange shirts. But they had to go to classes, and so attendance suddenly went up massively. Okay. And then not only are they getting the football, but they're getting a better education.
Yeah.
And so we did a similar project. We started with them. We're now in the second term with them again to give them English language classes. So it's really giving them life skills that they're learning by playing in a team. That sort of process of training. They're now attending more their classes of education, and then we're giving them English language as well. So I love those kind of holistic programs. And so on.
Yeah. So education related to life, but also learning some of the softer skills they'll need to develop. What's the next one?
Next one? Well, we did a project this summer. Next one will be we're going to go into different countries around the world. We really want to get this link up, so I'd like to get a project. And actually, if any of your listeners are involved in programs where I'd love to hear from them.
Okay, cool.
But
there might be a couple of our previous guests actually that might be interested. I've got one in mind actually, so I'll make sure I connect you.
Fantastic, thank you. But we actually started a programme this summer I mentioned Nottingham, where we were helping refugees.
Okay.
And we had two kind of cohorts. One was the younger ones, so 14 to 17-year-olds who were at secondary school, but perhaps don't have the same networks that kids that are brought up in the UK do. And then 18 plus, but most people tend to be sort of 25 to 40, 45, I'd say, that had come for whatever reason to the UK. And I felt I learned a lot that you can sometimes have a sort of stereotypical image that people are coming. We had a lot of people from Syria, for example, that come from war-torn background. But we had people that were persecuted in their countries for being homosexual. We had other people that were political refugees. So very sort of different circumstances. But all of them had this common thread that they all wanted to get on in their lives. And for them, it was either to get a job that was related to what they were doing back in their home country or to what they've done from their studies. And for me, it was kind of tragic hearing some of the, people that were like PhD students or master's students, and they were working in a warehouse. And again, nothing wrong with working in a warehouse per se, but I just feel what a waste of that talent, having studied that for so many years and having all that experience. So we ran a programme for a couple of weeks, and it was great. That's Ruth who'd actually introduced us. She came and spoke up. Ruth Hughes spoke up there. And we had all these different sessions. So we had like English language in the morning, which is helping people really with their literacy. And then in the afternoon, we did workshops, anything from creative things. My cousin, who's a designer, she came and ran one session. A friend of mine, Hannah, she came and did a session on innovation. We had lots of people from different companies come and talk. We had people from the university share about how to get, like from a faculty point of view, how to get into different topics. So we're now in talks with lots of different universities around the country. We've kind of got like a kit, and we understand how it works now. We would love to roll that out. So we're working on that. We're working on having other programs in other countries, and we're also doing things in the college as well to help people in the community. So it's a really nice mix from the foundation point of view.
Amazing. So a lot going on. Talk to me about the story you think encapsulates the work you do best.
Well, this is a tough one, really, because there's obviously the students we have in the college, and we've had some wonderful stories of people that have gone on to do great things. But I guess on the foundation side, one of our inspiration, I can't name for legal reasons his actual name, but we had a young man, I'd say, a teenager, 15-year-old, who'd come from Syria and had a very, very difficult situation, not just having to flee from a war-torn country, but the challenges he faced when he got here. He suffered bullying and ended up being hounded out of his community and had to be moved. And we'd heard about his story, and we managed to get in touch with the lawyers that were representing him, and he actually came on our programme. And it wasn't easy. It was the longest time he'd spent away. We did a residential programme, so he was like 2 weeks away from his family. And you could just see in him sort of like the light bulb moments on virtually a daily basis, just to being in a very friendly environment, very accepting. We really tried to help support him. And he was learning lots, helping with on the literacy side of things, but also all the activities and sports we did in the afternoon. He was loving it. He was really revelling, and he made some great friendships with some of the other kids at the same age as him. And at the end, in his feedback, I mean, this was such a moment. He said that it was his inspiration now to start a charity to help others that have been bullied.
Okay.
And for me, it was just one of those kind of heart melt moments where you think, wow, we've gone, because it was intense putting on those programs, but to sort of feel at the end, wow, we've really achieved something.
But that's one of the advantages of sharing stories of kindness and doing kind things. If you inspire somebody else to do it, then that becomes infectious, doesn't it, and carries on. So that's amazing. So one of the things, thanks for sharing all that, we really appreciate it. But one of the things we always like to do at the end of any interview is ask you some of the questions that we ask our listeners. This is where Charlotte starts to get really excited.
I don't get to sit in
why does it look like you're warming up?
I don't get to sit in on many of these interviews, so this is my moment to shine. So
go on then. So would you like?
Have you got a list of them?
I'll get the list up so you can do a couple from memory. So these are the every week for 98. No, actually, it'd be more now. It'd be 102. We get to ask our listeners a question, and they respond to us. And that question is typically nothing to do with kindness, but just because we're curious people, we like to ask our listeners.
It's a different question every week. I'm surprised we've come up with so many.
Opinions on different stuff.
Put me on the spot here.
So this is a quick fire round.
There's more than one. Okay.
There's loads. So
you've got menace in your eye when you say that. Thanks.
Yeah. That look scared me, to be honest.
This is my favourite bit. So I'll just pick out the most popular ones, usually from the start, because they're the easiest ones to remember. I'm going to start with, what's your favourite biscuit?
Oh, what's my favourite biscuit? Digestive biscuit.
Okay. Who's your favourite Muppet?
God, you're now putting me on the spot.
Now this is one of our most contentious animal. Of course, it can only.
I did cross my eyes at onset because I was feeling like under pressure there, but definitely animal.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I'm a kid of the '80s, so I'm trying to really make sure my kids know about Fraggle Rock. Yeah. I think Fraggle Rock is just the best thing in the world ever.
Love Fraggle Rock.
You do a decent amount of travel.
Yeah.
What country is on the top of your must-visit list?
Oh, I've always wanted to go to Argentina.
Okay.
Never been there.
So, South America, where have you visited so far?
Brazil I've been to a few times, and as I mentioned earlier, having Spanish, I've got a project there, so I'd like to go out and see it. But also I've been lucky enough, as a result of a friendship I made in Spain, to go to a Brazilian wedding, which was just amazing.
Okay.
If you ever get an opportunity, listeners, it's a great experience. And I've been to Colombia as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But Argentina's on there, right?
Definitely. Okay. I just like the landscape and the lifestyle.
Yeah, we haven't done any of South America, really, have we?
Not really.
We came back from Japan this year, which was amazing. Yeah,
brilliant.
It was really, really
brilliant.
Good.
Yeah.
And we're doing. You've got this trip planned for next year, right?
Cold War's greatest hits.
Yeah, so we're starting in Moscow and we're interrailing it around Eastern Europe.
In the summer? Or in the winter?
After my GCSEs.
When Charlotte finishes her GCSEs, we've got
St.
a bit
Petersburg?
of St. Petersburg's on the list.
Yeah.
So Moscow to St. Petersburg, and then probably over to Riga, and then sort of round back to...
Prague I want to do as well.
Yeah, you want to go to Prague as well,
I want to do all the Eastern European Cold War spots.
Brilliant.
Because Charlotte, for some reason, loves the Cold War, doesn't it?
It's one of my topics at school, so I just kind of have a weird investment.
You're going to go to Berlin?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Prague and Berlin and Budapest
Never been.
before.
Never been.
Charlotte's never been, so we've got a long train ride planned, so it should be good fun.
Well, I was only a few weeks ago, just before actually flying to China, we were in Berlin. We have there's like an annual conference there for the international education industry, and it's always at the end of October, November. And having been there from a history point of view and read lots of sort of Cold War stories in history and so on, it's like for me that is Berlin. That sort of weather, it's always sort of cold and misty and so on.
Yeah, but was it? I mean, I had a really straight. I went to Berlin about 3 years ago for Cassie and I went. So Charlotte's mum and I went, and we did during the day. It was sort of November time, so it was all very cold. Weather wasn't particularly great, so we did like the Berlin Wall, and we did the Reichstag, and we did like the amazing history. Wandered into old East Germany, which still felt quite communist in feel. But then of an evening, all the Christmas markets were out, and they had jazz playing everywhere and stuff like that. So actually, it was one of those countries that even now is still quite a dichotomy, right?
Yeah.
It's still a mixture of both these things.
Yeah.
And quite a modern cosmopolitan place. But
it's great. But that's what for me it's very funny because my cousin actually lives there, so I went there in like April, and it just didn't feel like Berlin for me because I was so used to this sort of misty image.
I want it to be more miserable.
It's not cold enough for me.
In my head, Berlin is still in two different parts.
You know what? It's weird because architecturally, I found some of it is because they've done less development on the east than the west.
Yeah, that's because the west was supported by like a capitalist and culture like America. It was the US, Britain and Paris that had control of the western side. But the Eastern Bloc was controlled by the USSR, and they were communists, so it was all...
Thanks for the history lesson, Charlotte. Should we go
apparently, teaching others helps to learn it myself, so...
Exactly, so
sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next question.
Okay, if you had your own gang, what would it be called?
Whoa. If you had your own gang. That's a very good question.
I love this question because it's just inspired by me and it's great.
I'm trying to think of what football teams or other teams I've had in the past. I've never really had a gang. The Falkland Road gang, that's where I live.
Okay, and...
I used to own a gang called the Baggy Trousers.
What's your favourite work of art?
Van Gogh's The Sunflowers.
Amazing, I love Van Gogh. Yeah.
That or I have to say, having seen Picasso's Guernica up front, not a massive Picasso fan, but just an amazing piece.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely the Sunflowers. Yeah.
Sunflowers, love that. I got to see Starry Night a couple of years ago up close. It's in New York, and I got in a lot of trouble because I got so close to it. A big burly American security had to push me back a bit.
Yeah, the Mona Lisa's a little bit disappointing.
Look, you and I have seen it. We found it a bit underwhelming, didn't we?
It's so small.
Yeah, it's so small. Have you been though to Monet's house in France? Monet's house in France. You know, the
lilies.
The water lilies.
Was it Giverny? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, Giverny. Yeah.
Yes, I have.
It's amazing, isn't it? Like the images. It's great. What's your favourite piece of trivia?
Oh, I like that one.
So the piece of useless knowledge you've got.
Well, we have a pub quiz every year. I'm probably going to ruin it now because I use this one whenever I'm put on the spot. Where we have like an eliminator round. This is like we raise money for Zimbabwe, and how many seeds or species of seed is there at Kew Gardens?
It's got to be 1,000. What would you guess on that?
3,692.
Do you know
good
that?
Opening gambit.
4,220.
40,000.
Really?
You what?
Amazing.
I hope that's true when you Google it later, otherwise
my trivia fact is like changed.
What's your one? Because it might be
Lychees aren't good for you.
That's more of a generalisation, though, isn't it?
Okay, the fact is that lychees stop the chemicals in your liver from working, so that fats in your body can't be broken down into glucose.
But
E.g., lychees aren't good for starving people.
interesting. We had this conversation. We never had it on the podcast, though. How many lychees have you got to eat for it not to be good for you?
It depends on whether you've eaten or not. So if you haven't eaten, if you haven't eaten anything all day,
don't eat a lychee.
don't eat lychees because
But if I've had 3 square meals, am I allowed just to?
You're good.
Like a lychee?
Because the chemicals in your body are still processing the glucose, but it's just if you haven't eaten at all, the chemicals that break down the fats in your bodies and turn them into glucose are needed to produce the glucose because it's not coming from an external source.
Gotcha. And
eat lychees on empty stomach.
that's your tip for today.
Don't eat them often, but I'm taking that away.
If you've learned one thing, and my one hasn't changed from that original podcast, who is the first ever person in the UK to use a ATM machine to withdraw cash? You know the answer to this.
The Queen?
I forgot.
I don't know who. The Bank of England?
It's a weird one. Reg Farney from On the Buses. You know the old 70s sitcom On the Buses? Again, Google it, look it up. And the reason being is because the first ever ATM was opened in Barclays Bank in North London, and he was their local celebrity.
Really?
Yeah! Such an amazing
What
fact,
about
isn't it?
who was singing on the Berlin Wall when it came down? I can't remember who it was now.
David
There's the
Hasselhoff.
Hoff.
Yeah, that could be a good one. And then the last question.
Freedom.
I don't know if he was on it when it came down, but it wasn't a million.
It wasn't a
He was
million
on a
pounds.
helicopter, wasn't he? He was circling around.
Yeah,
Speakers
I
attached.
still don't know why David Hasselhoff was so popular in Germany at the time. I don't know why that was, but
Okay.
let's find out. Last one. Oh, you've got
What's
one
your
more?
favourite app?
What's my favourite app? Well, apart from the Bayswater app, can't it? Also plug. We've got our own app. There you
Good
go.
plug, we like it.
When you-
Available on all popular.
More
phones.
popular than that? More popular than the Bayswater app. I must admit, probably the most time I spend on BBC Sport app if I'm making a confession.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and what's our last question of the podcast was what's the one thing you've done once but would never do again?
Eat at Garfunkel's?
Good answer. Garfunkel's other rubbish restaurants are available. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Where can people find out more about the college and the foundation?
Well, it's probably easiest to go on the website, so it's bayswater.ac.
Okay.
It's very easy.
Amazing.
And if you go on there, you can see the giving page, so.
Cool. Thank you so much for your time
Brilliant,
today.
thank you. Cheers,
you.
thanks to both of you.
So that was the last element of the episode with James. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, it was good.
Now, one thing I need to mention is that we did record it quite a long time ago, so it was pre-COVID. So there might be some references in there that are slightly unusual because it was a pre-COVID interview.
I don't even remember pre-COVID. What was that? A lifetime ago?
Well, but you know what? I was saying to somebody the other day that actually this is like all of the interviews we've done for the past 3.5 years is a bit of a social commentary on post and pre-COVID, isn't it? I wonder if we're going to listen back and there'll be subjects that we're talking about in like 2018. I mean, we were in 2019 talking quite a lot about our trip to Japan, weren't we? You know that thing you used to be able to do when you could get on a plane and go to a different country.
You mean get on 2 planes and go to a completely different country on the other side of the world?
I forgot our flyby visit to Copenhagen.
Didn't even
when we
see
sat at the
Copenhagen.
airport.
We just sat at the airport.
Shall we end the show?
Sure.
Go on then.
'tis the end of another podcast. I really need to get that at the bottom of a mug. Just 'tis the end.
I know.
I keep saying it, but you know, hasn't happened yet.
we definitely need to do something about our merch, don't we? And last question of the podcast was a good one.
So popular.
Not particularly popular though. You know what though? I mean, sometimes the question of the podcasts that are the most trivial are the easiest to answer, and therefore get the most answers. Last week's question of the podcast was a bit big.
Yes.
It is.
We always go big and then
Go home.
go home.
Quickly, because we haven't got that many answers to it. But the question of the podcast this week last week was, what's the world's greatest natural wonder? And we had a joke answer. I think it's a joke. Mandy, who's the trainer at my gym. Brian Hill said punctuation is the world's greatest natural wonder. Steve Dan said, I wished he would have said the wonder of childbirth, but Steve's a direct guy. Just went birth. John Cook, who I know is a West Ham fan, said Julian Dick's taken a penalty. Nathan Fryer, this one I love. Nathan Fryer said selfless acts of kindness, and Al McCann said the sheer diversity of life.
I would have just said creation itself, but sure.
So creation.
The
itself.
existence of anything is wonderful in itself.
True, and chaotic.
Yeah, but wonderful all the same.
Yeah, love it. And on that note, I don't think we can top that ending.
No.
The creation of life the creation of life is wonderful. We'll see you next week.
Nice, isn't it?
Nice. The nice creation of life. See you next week, listeners.
Bye.